Devil's Due, Chapter 1. Badlands, New Sydney, year 2494. The sun was a merciless yellow eye glaring down at a landscape of rocks. Hard-baked earth, the hardest of scrubber brush and the most stubborn of life forms. There was not a single cloud in the facelessly blue sky to mitigate the intensity of its gaze, and the promise of relief in the form of nightfall was many hours away. Movement cut through the barren desert, silvery and sleek. It looked almost like a water flowing through a valley, but it was nothing so natural or pleasant. The swollen sun's ray glinted harshly on the metallic train as it twined, snake-like, soaring through the badlands towards its final destination, where it would disgorge its precious cargo. Two men waited in the cool shelter of a cave, watching the silvery serpentine object. They were silent, but it was an easy silence, and the only sound was the inhalation of one of them as he sucked smoke from a glowing cigar, one final time, dropped the stoogie and crushed it with a single step from a massive boot. "Let's go ride that pony," said Tychus Finlay. Next to him, not in any way a small man, but looking comparatively tiny next to the giant that was Tychus, was a shaggy-haired, bearded man who was already sitting astride a vulture hoverbike. He gave his friend a wicked grin. "Move your ass then, slowpoke," he said, kicked the bike into life and charged down the sloping ravine towards the maglev train. Tychus swore, jumped on his own bike and took after Jim Raynor at a reckless speed. It was at times like this that Jim Raynor, former Marine Lance Corporal, proud citizen of the Confederacy, and Eastwide farm boy, felt most alive. At the speed at which he was urging the vulture, the wind cooled his face so that the oppressive heat vanished. He felt like a wolf hunting down his prey. Except the purpose of today's adventure was not the death of a living being, but the death of the empty state of Raynor's and Tychus's wallets. This was a cargo train, not a passenger train, and inside its silver innards was, if Tychus' tip was right, and Jim had every reason to believe it would be, a very lovely, very large safe filled with Confederate credits. "Why, it's a rescue mission, Jimmy," Tychus had rumbled, his blue eyes dancing with good humor as he had filled Raynor in on the plan. "Those poor creds, they would just be condemned to lining the pockets of some old families who don't need any more money, or else put it to some nefarious scheme that could hurt somebody. It's our duty, hell, it's our calling to liberate them creds to where they could do something that really mattered. Like buying us drinks, women and steak dinners." "Well, that's a good start. You got a heart of gold, Tychus. I've never met such an altruistic man in my life. I got a goddamn tear in my eyes." "It's a tough job, but someone gotta do it." Jim grinned as he recalled the conversation. He and Tychus were behind the train, catching up to it quickly. He stayed right and Tychus veered left. Tychus crossed over the maglev tracks, adjusting the magnetic frequency on his bike to compensate so that he, like the train itself, could cross easily. Jim increased his speed, moving alongside the maglev until the right car came into view. He and Tychus had spent hours analyzing all kinds of transportation vessels over the last few years, sometimes simply from blueprints or images, but usually up close and personal, as they were about to do now. They had liberated other credits before. It seemed to them like hundreds of thousands over the years, although the liberated credits never seemed to stay with them very long. That was all right too, also part of the ride that life had become. "Careful, boy, don't move ahead too fast," came Tychus' gravely voice, in his ear. "I ain't coming back for you if you drop in on the wrong car." Raynor grinned. "Right, you just take all the creds and hightail it out to Wicked Wayne's." "Damn straight, so hit the mark." Timing was crucial. Jim Raynor speed up even more, glancing down at his controls to see the small dot that represented Tychus doing the same. He knew they were mirror images of each other after doing this so as often as they had over the past 5 years. "Oopsie daisy," Tychus said. In unison they hit the lift and rose vertically so the vultures, customized within an inch of their lives, were now flying, if not as high as their namesakes, then at least slightly higher than the train's roof. The uniquely modified hoverbikes landed, bumped the top of the train, landed again, and the two men had them clamped and locked down within half a second. Magnetic locks also custom installed for this exact purpose. They leaped off the bikes. Next step, getting to the back of the car, climbing down, opening the door, and seeing who comprised the welcoming committee. At that precise instant, the train took a bend and brought them right into a cross-current of wind. A sudden sharp movement threw Raynor off balance. He fell hard and started sliding towards the edge. Tychus' gloved hand shot out and grabbed the neck of Raynor's vest while he threw himself down, reached up and seized the secured vulture. Raynor jolted to a halt. Adrenaline shot through him, but not with fear. He had done this before, and he was prepared. He took a second to get his bearings, then pointed. One hand on the bike, the other clutching Jim, the bigger man moved Raynor about a third of a meter until he was facing the end of the car rather than the side. "Hold my legs," Raynor shouted to Tychus. Tychus grunted, releasing the vest collar, then grabbing first Jim's belt and then his ankle as Raynor slid forward. Raynor pressed a button and activated the powerful magnets embedded in his vest. Between these and Tychus' near bone-crushing grips on his ankle, Raynor was not going anywhere. Normally, he had tried to drop down on the small platform at the back of the car, but the train was still going through what seemed to be a damned wind tunnel, and time was on the essence once they had landed with what had to been an audible thump on the roof of the thing. Raynor stretched forward far enough so he could get one arm down and felt about quickly but blindly. There it was, the top of the door. Not the ideal place to plant an explosive, but it would have to do. He fished out the small device from his pocket, tapped in the activation code, clapped it on the door as far down as he could put it, deactivated the mag grips and yelled, "Pull back! Pull back!" Tychus yanked him back so hard, Jim felt the exposed part of his arm burn from the friction. It wasn't comfortable, but he didn't mind too much, as he was safely away from the explosion, which shot back black smoke and bits of debris in all directions. "Don't suppose you got anything resembling a look-see?" "Nope," Jim said, still lying down. He grabbed his pistol from his holster, shot Tychus a grin, and said, "What? You scared of dropping in on a bunch of Confederate guards?" "Not me, little girl," Tychus said. His own weapons were strapped to his back. He reached and pulled it out, an AGR-14 that looked as mean as Tychus himself. "Let's go." Tychus dropped to his belly beside Jim, and they let the very speed of the train move them forward. It slid to the edge, and at the last minute each man shot out a hand, gripped the top of the train, and flipped down, somersaulting into the cabin, ready to attack. They were greeted by no one. "Oh shit," Jimmy Tychus said. "This ain't the car with the safe."